Jasmine had worked at the little diner in town for over 3 years, serving greasy burgers and fries to regulars who barely looked up from their phones. It was the kind of job you didn't expect much from, but it paid the bills. Most days, she went through the motions. Take the order, pour the coffee, clear the plates. Simple, unremarkable. But today? Today was different. As she shuffled between tables, she heard the door chime. A familiar sound. Only, when she turned to see who walked in, her heart skipped a beat. Dwayne, the Rock Johnson, in her diner. It felt like time slowed down as she stared at him, standing at the door in a casual t-shirt, jeans, and his signature smile. She blinked once, then twice, wondering if she was seeing things. There was no way this was real. Jasmine had seen him on TV 1,000 times, dominating the big screen with his charisma and larger-than-life personality. But here, in her small-town diner, it was like a dream she never even dared to have. Her legs felt like jelly, and for a split second, she thought about turning around and walking out the back door. But no, this was her shift, her job. She couldn't just run away. So she did the only thing she could think of. She walked toward him, trying to act like she wasn't internally freaking out. "Hi, welcome to the Sunset Diner," she said, forcing a calm tone. "What can I get you today?" He looked up at her, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "I'll take a coffee and one of your famous burgers. Medium rare, please." And maybe, he hesitated for a second before continuing, "Some good conversation?" Jasmine nearly dropped the menu in her hands. Was he really asking for conversation? Dwayne Johnson? The guy who had fought giants in movies and became an icon. She had seen him on talk shows, but this felt surreal. I can do that," she stammered, still trying to process what was happening. Coming right up. She turned to walk away, but as she did, a customer from a nearby booth muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Why is he even here? He's just here for attention. Probably thinks he's too good for this place." Jasmine's stomach twisted. That voice. The sneer. It was all too familiar. The kind of talk she'd heard 1,000 times in her life. She felt her fists tighten, but before she could react, a calm, deep voice interrupted her. "Excuse me." Dwayne's voice rang out and she froze. "Is there a problem here?" Her eyes widened, and she quickly turned back. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath as Dwayne stood tall, his presence commanding the attention of the room. The rude customer looked like he'd swallowed a cactus, caught off guard by the Rock's sudden intervention. "Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything," the man stammered. But Dwayne didn't give him the chance to finish. "Listen," Dwayne said, his voice firm yet friendly. "I know you might not understand this, but I'm just here to enjoy a meal like anyone else. And if you've got an issue with the amazing people working here, you should probably keep it to yourself. No one needs that energy." Jasmine stood there, stunned, unsure of what to do. Was this really happening? Did he just stand up for her? The customer mumbled something under his breath, grabbed his coat, and stormed out of the diner, leaving behind a thick silence in his wake. "Sorry about that," Dwayne said with a smile, looking back at Jasmine. "Guess it's a good thing I showed up, huh?" Jasmine could only nod, her mouth suddenly dry. She forced a smile, trying to hold it together. I really appreciate it. Thank you." He shrugged, flashing that signature grin. "You've got nothing to apologize for. I think the world could use more people like you, standing up for what's right." For a moment, all Jasmine could do was stare at him, her mind racing. She had expected 1,000 things to happen today, but never this. Dwayne Johnson, in her diner, standing up for her in front of everyone. It was almost too much to take in. But just as she was starting to gather her thoughts, her boss, Mr. Harris, appeared from behind the counter, his face clouded with annoyance. "Jasmine," he snapped, making her jump. "What's going on back here? We don't need celebrities causing a scene in my diner." Her stomach sank. She had expected some praise, maybe even a compliment from her boss for handling the situation well. But instead, Mr. Harris was upset. I didn't mean to cause trouble," Jasmine tried to explain, but her words felt hollow in the face of his cold stare. "Just get back to work," Mr. Harris grumbled, turning away. Dwayne, who had been quietly observing the exchange, raised an eyebrow at the manager. Jasmine could feel her cheeks burning. She had tried to do the right thing, but now it seemed like the consequences were already setting in. As she walked back to her station, her mind was spinning. What had just happened? And why did it feel like something bigger was about to unfold? Dwayne Johnson had stood up for her. But her boss? Her boss clearly didn't see it the same way. Jasmine had always believed in the power of perseverance. Growing up in a small town, she was no stranger to hard work. Her mother, a single parent, raised her and her younger brother, Elijah, with a sense of grit and determination that Jasmine would carry with her throughout her life. The constant message was simple: never give up, no matter how tough things get. Her mom, Monica, worked 2 jobs to keep the family afloat, one as a nurse at the local hospital and the other as a housekeeper for the wealthy families in town. Jasmine would often help out at home, making dinner for Elijah or studying late into the night in the hopes of someday escaping the cycle of financial struggle. But as much as she admired her mother, Jasmine knew early on that life wasn't always fair. People often underestimated them because of their skin color. Jasmine couldn't count how many times she had been overlooked for promotions or treated with less respect than her peers, whether at school or in her jobs. Still, she tried not to let it bother her. She told herself that the way people saw her didn't define who she was. If she kept working hard and proving herself, things would eventually get better. Or at least that's what she hoped. At 17, Jasmine was accepted to a local community college on a scholarship. It wasn't a full ride, but it was enough to get her started. It was there that she met her best friend, Tasha. They clicked instantly. Tasha was outspoken, confident, and full of life, a perfect balance to Jasmine's more reserved, hard-working nature. Their friendship became a cornerstone of Jasmine's life. Tasha encouraged her to speak up when she felt silenced, to take risks even when fear gripped her heart. But still, Jasmine felt the weight of her responsibilities. Between school and part-time work, it was hard to keep up with everything. Every dollar earned went to textbooks, bills, or food. There was little time left for fun, for socializing, for dreams beyond the immediate grind. After graduation, Jasmine found herself still stuck in her hometown. She tried applying for jobs in the city, but with no experience beyond waitressing, her prospects were limited. She wasn't sure whether to stay and keep working at the diner or take a risk and leave everything behind. But the money was steady, and her mom needed help with Elijah, who was growing up way too fast. So, she stayed. She worked double shifts, barely scraping by, but telling herself it was temporary. She was saving for a future that would be better. And then there was Elijah. Jasmine loved her brother fiercely. He was 14 now, a sharp, witty kid with dreams of becoming a software engineer. Jasmine had always told him that he could be anything he wanted if he worked hard enough. And she meant it. But she also knew that sometimes hard work wasn't enough. Sometimes it was about connections, opportunities, things she could never provide on her own. But what Jasmine couldn't admit, even to herself, was that she was tired. She was tired of the endless struggle, of feeling invisible, of being the one who always had to work harder to get the same recognition. She had dreams of her own, of building a life that wasn't just about survival, but about living fully, joyfully, without constant fear of failure. But those dreams felt distant. Every day felt like it was spent waiting for something to change, something to break the cycle. But nothing ever did, until today. Jasmine glanced at the clock above the kitchen door. Her shift was winding down, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the diner, to the moment Dwayne Johnson had walked in, to the way he had stood up for her, without hesitation, without the weight of judgment that so often came from the customers in her section. It wasn't just the fact that he was a celebrity that had made the moment so special. It was that, for once, someone had stood up for her. The whole thing had happened so fast. Dwayne's words, the customer leaving in a huff. But something inside Jasmine had clicked. For the first time in ages, she had felt seen. And in a way, it felt like it had come at the exact moment she needed it the most. The diner had always been a place where she blended into the background. But Dwayne's defense, his quiet act of solidarity, had made her realize something she hadn't let herself admit. She didn't have to blend in anymore. She didn't have to keep shrinking herself to make others feel comfortable. Jasmine felt a surge of courage build inside her, mixed with a tinge of excitement. The moment she'd shared with Dwayne had reminded her of the one thing she knew deep down. She was capable of so much more than serving coffee and burgers. She could do something bigger. The morning after the unexpected showdown in the diner, Jasmine barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the same scenes over and over. Dwayne Johnson standing up for her, the rude customer storming out, and the cold stare of her boss, Mr. Harris. She had hoped that waking up would bring some clarity, but instead, all she felt was confusion. Why had Dwayne even come to her diner in the first place? It was a small town, and celebrities didn't exactly just pop in for a casual meal. She tried to shake off the feeling that this was some bizarre twist of fate, but the thought kept nagging at her. Jasmine had always been a realist. She knew the odds of Dwayne remembering her or caring about what happened after he left were slim. He was busy, important, too important for a small-town waitress to even be on his radar. But still, there was a part of her that couldn't help but wonder if there was more to the encounter than just a random celebrity sighting. The following afternoon, while Jasmine was busy wiping down a table, her phone buzzed. At first, she thought it was just another text from Tasha, but when she saw the name on the screen, her stomach dropped. It was a direct message on Instagram, and the sender was none other than Dwayne Johnson himself. Her hands trembled as she unlocked her phone and opened the message. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, "Hey Jasmine. I just wanted to reach out and thank you again for your kindness today. It's rare to find someone who stands up for what's right. I can tell you're an incredible person. If there's anything I can do to help, don't hesitate to reach out. Keep doing your thing." Jasmine read the message over and over, unsure if her eyes were playing tricks on her. Dwayne Johnson just sent me a message. She didn't know what to do with herself. The last thing she expected was for him to follow up after what happened. Of course, she appreciated his words, but she didn't want to seem unprofessional or starstruck. It wasn't like she could just hit him up for help or favors, right? But then again, he did offer. With shaking hands, she typed a reply, trying to sound casual but also sincere. "Jasmine, thank you so much, Dwayne. It was really kind of you to speak up for me. It means more than you know. I just did what anyone would have done. I appreciate you reaching out." She paused for a moment before hitting send. Her finger hovered over the screen, unsure if she should say more or leave it at that. "Keep it cool," she reminded herself. Almost immediately, she got another reply. "Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, don't be so humble. You did more than anyone else would have. Keep in touch, Jasmine. And if you ever need anything, even just advice or a friend to talk to, I'm here. I believe in people who have the courage to stand up for others." Jasmine couldn't believe it. She reread the message. He wants to be my friend? What kind of world was she living in? Before she could get too caught up in the whirlwind of thoughts, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call from her mother. "Jasmine, you won't believe this." Monica's voice was full of excitement. "I just saw the news. You're on TV." Jasmine froze. "What do you mean? What's on TV?" "The diner incident. They're talking about it. The whole town's buzzing, and there's a segment about you standing up to that rude customer. I'm so proud of you, honey. You did something that not many people would do." Jasmine felt her stomach tighten. The last thing she wanted was for her personal life to be aired out on national TV. The last few days had already been enough of a spotlight. But now? "Mom, you don't understand," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "This wasn't anything. Just a celebrity being nice. Nothing more." Her mother laughed softly. "Jasmine, this is more than just nothing. You stood up for yourself, and that matters. The whole world's going to see that." Jasmine's mind was spinning. Was this really happening? Was she really becoming part of some bigger story? But what really caught her off guard was the growing sense of responsibility she felt. What if this opportunity could actually change things for me? It wasn't just about the diner anymore. Dwayne Johnson's unexpected visit, the messages, the media attention. It all felt like it could be the beginning of something new, something bigger. As the day went on, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that her life had shifted in ways she didn't quite understand yet. The world she had always known, the routine she had grown comfortable with, seemed to be unraveling before her eyes. And she had no idea what the next chapter of her story would look like. But there was one thing she knew for sure. It was time for a change. Her shift ended that evening, and as she walked out of the diner, the cool night air hit her face. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. The idea of leaving behind the safety of her routine and taking a leap into the unknown felt less terrifying and more like a possibility. Maybe it wasn't just a random event. Maybe this was the push she needed. She pulled out her phone, thinking about the message from Dwayne. A friend to talk to, advice, and maybe even a new path. It was a lot to process, but one thing was certain. She wasn't going to let this moment slip away. The next few days felt like a whirlwind for Jasmine. The news stories about the diner incident were spreading fast. At first, it felt like a fleeting moment, something that would fade with time. But instead, the opposite happened. The story picked up steam. Local news outlets picked it up. Then national entertainment websites ran the story. Jasmine's face appeared on the screens of social media feeds everywhere. Her name was being mentioned alongside Dwayne Johnson's. Her name, the small-town waitress who had stood up for herself in the face of disrespect. Jasmine couldn't believe it. She wasn't a celebrity, but for a few days, it felt like she was. She'd received messages from strangers, friends she hadn't spoken to in years, and even a few people who had heard about her story and reached out to express their support. But amid all the excitement, Jasmine still felt a sense of unease. It was like living in someone else's life, as if this was all happening to someone who wasn't her. She had to remind herself that this sudden spotlight didn't change her. She was still the same person, working in the same diner, trying to make ends meet. But everything was changing around her, and she couldn't ignore it. Later that week, just as Jasmine was getting ready for her shift, her phone rang. When she saw the number, her heart skipped a beat. It was a private number. Was it him again? Dwayne? She picked up with a cautious but hopeful hello. "Hi, is this Jasmine?" The voice on the other end was deep and warm, instantly familiar. "Yes, this is Jasmine," she said, almost breathless. "Jasmine, this is Michael Green. I'm Dwayne's manager. We've been following your story, and we're really impressed with how you handled yourself at the diner. Dwayne would like to invite you to his charity event next weekend. He'd love to meet you in person, talk, and see how he can support you." Jasmine's mind went blank. A charity event? An invitation from Dwayne's team? This was insane. "Wait, what?" she stammered. "Did you say Dwayne Johnson wants to meet me?" "That's right," Michael confirmed. "We've been discussing some opportunities, and Dwayne would love to help you in any way he can. It's all about supporting people who stand up for what's right, and he's really taken an interest in you." Jasmine was trying to process this, but it felt like her world had just been flipped upside down. Her life had been defined by late-night shifts at the diner and quiet, simple moments. And now this? She glanced around the diner, the noise of clinking plates and the hum of conversation filling the air. It felt like a dream she wasn't sure she was ready to wake up from. I don't even know what to say. "This is unbelievable," she managed to say. "You don't have to say anything, Jasmine. Just know that you've got support, and this could be the beginning of something big. If you're interested, we can arrange for travel and accommodations." I'd love to," she said, the excitement slowly overtaking her shock. "Yes, I'd be honored." Michael's voice softened, almost as if he could hear her nerves. "Don't worry. This is just an opportunity. You don't have to decide everything right now, but it's a chance for you to get out there, meet some new people, and see what possibilities are out there." Jasmine felt a tightness in her chest, like she was about to cry. She had always believed that she was destined for more, that one day, something would change, and she'd be able to leave behind the struggles of her daily life. But now, staring at the phone, her heart racing with both fear and excitement, she realized that this moment might be the answer she had been waiting for. "Okay," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Okay, I'll go." "Great. We'll send over the details soon. Dwayne's really excited to meet you, Jasmine. He believes in you. This is just the start." As the call ended, Jasmine sat frozen in the booth. Everything felt like it was moving in slow motion. The phone call had been surreal, but now, the reality was sinking in. She was about to attend a high-profile charity event with Dwayne Johnson. Her life, the life she'd always known, was changing in ways she hadn't dared to imagine. That evening, as Jasmine prepared for her shift, she couldn't stop thinking about the future. This was her moment, the chance she had been waiting for. Her invitation wasn't just a gift from Dwayne. It was an opportunity to show the world who she truly was. She wasn't just a waitress. She was someone with a voice, someone who could make a difference. And, just like that, the idea of leaving behind the small-town life she had known for so long started to feel less terrifying. In fact, it started to feel empowering. As she walked into the diner for her shift, she noticed something strange. Mr. Harris, her boss, was standing by the counter, looking at her with a frown. His expression was tense, almost as if he had been expecting her to say something. "Jasmine, we need to talk," he said, his tone clipped. Jasmine's stomach churned. "What now?" "I don't know what's going on with all this media attention, but I don't like it," Mr. Harris continued. "This diner doesn't need this kind of publicity. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep you on with all the distractions." Jasmine's heart sank. She had expected praise, maybe even a congratulations. But this felt like a slap in the face. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harris. I didn't ask for this attention. It's just been a series of crazy events. But I promise you, I'm still committed to my work here." Mr. Harris narrowed his eyes, not looking convinced. "We'll see how it goes, Jasmine. But I don't want this story to hurt the reputation of this place." Jasmine stood there, a mixture of hurt and frustration building inside her. She had stood up for herself in front of a rude customer, and now it felt like she was being punished for it. But she wasn't going to back down. Not now. She took a deep breath. "I've got some things to think about, Mr. Harris. I'm not sure how much longer I'll be here." With that, she turned and walked away, her mind racing with the weight of the decisions ahead. Jasmine spent the next few days in a fog of emotions, as if everything around her had shifted too quickly for her to catch up. The charity event was just around the corner, and she found herself grappling with a mix of excitement, fear, and disbelief. She had always dreamed of a bigger life, but now that the opportunity was here, it felt almost surreal. After her conversation with Mr. Harris, the weight of her job at the diner began to feel even heavier. She could feel the pressure building. He wasn't exactly being subtle about his displeasure with her newfound fame, and it was clear that her position there was no longer as secure as it once had been. The next day, Jasmine's phone rang again. This time, it was Michael Green, Dwayne's manager. "Hey, Jasmine, how's everything going?" he asked in his usual warm tone. "Hi, Michael. It's good, but also a little overwhelming," she admitted. "I'm trying to figure out how to balance everything, you know? This whole thing has happened so fast." "I totally get that," he said. "It's a lot to process, but that's why I'm calling. We want to make sure you have everything you need for the event, and we're also talking about some opportunities that could help you with your future." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of opportunities?" "Well, Dwayne has been talking about doing more with the platform he's built, not just for acting or business, but to give people like you a chance to step into something bigger. We're looking into mentorship programs, speaking opportunities, and some other things that might align with your story." Jasmine's head was spinning. "Wait, mentorship? Are you saying that Dwayne wants to help me with my future?" "Exactly," Michael replied. "Dwayne believes in you. He saw something special in how you handled yourself at the diner. And he's not just offering this to make a headline. He genuinely wants to support you. We can talk about more details when you get here, but it's a chance to really take control of your future." Jasmine was silent for a moment, trying to process the gravity of what Michael was saying. She had never imagined something like this, being mentored by someone like Dwayne Johnson, someone who had achieved so much. It felt like an impossible dream, but here it was, laid out in front of her. "Thank you, Michael. I'm not sure what to say. This is huge," she said, trying to keep the excitement from bubbling over. "Don't worry about saying the perfect thing," Michael said with a chuckle. "Just be yourself, and we'll take care of the rest. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person." After the call ended, Jasmine sank into the couch, her mind racing. She thought about the diner, about Mr. Harris's cold response, and about the path she had been on for so many years. But now, suddenly, she was being offered an entirely new direction. The opportunity to change her life wasn't just a dream anymore. It was becoming her reality. That night, she sat with her mother, Monica, in the small living room of their modest apartment. Elijah was asleep in his room, and the two of them shared a quiet dinner. Jasmine had decided she needed to talk to her mother about what was happening, but the words caught in her throat. She wasn't sure how to explain it all. Monica noticed her silence. "Jasmine, what's going on? You've barely said a word all evening." Jasmine took a deep breath. "Mom, I got the invitation from Dwayne Johnson's team. I'm going to the charity event. But it's not just that. They want to help me. They want to mentor me. Dwayne wants to help me build a future, a career. He believes in me." Monica stared at her, wide-eyed. "Oh my God. Jasmine, this is huge. This is everything we've talked about." "I don't know if I can handle it, Mom," Jasmine said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know where to begin. It's all moving so fast." Monica reached over and took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Honey, I know it's a lot to take in. But this is your chance. This is the moment you've been waiting for. You've worked so hard, and now something incredible is happening. You have to go for it." "But what about the diner?" Jasmine asked. "Mr. Harris is already mad about all the attention. He's basically said if I'm going to be in the spotlight, I can't keep working there." Monica sighed. "That's the part that's hard. But maybe it's time to move on from that job. You've done your time. You deserve more than a life behind a counter. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but you need to take that step. This could be the break you've been waiting for." Jasmine nodded, but a sense of doubt lingered in her chest. "I'm scared, Mom. What if I mess it up? What if this whole thing falls apart?" Monica gave her a gentle smile. "You've always been afraid of taking risks, Jasmine. But look at everything you've already accomplished. Look at how far you've come. This is just the next step, and you're going to handle it just like you always do, with strength and grace. I know you can do it." Jasmine felt a rush of gratitude, mixed with the weight of everything she was about to leave behind. She had spent so many years in the shadows, feeling overlooked and underappreciated. But now, she had a chance to step into the light, to take control of her future. She wasn't sure what the next chapter would look like, but she knew one thing for sure. She was ready to take the leap. Jasmine barely slept that night. The weight of everything pressing down on her felt overwhelming. She was going to meet Dwayne Johnson. She was going to attend a high-profile event with the possibility of a future she had never imagined. But with every new opportunity, there came a difficult choice. And this time, it was the hardest one she had ever faced. The next morning, she walked into the diner for her shift, a sense of dread in her stomach. The usual hum of conversation, the clattering of silverware, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. But today, none of it felt comforting. She was standing on the edge of something big, something she couldn't ignore anymore. When Mr. Harris saw her walk in, his eyes narrowed. "Jasmine," he said in his usual clipped tone, "we need to talk." Jasmine braced herself. She had known this conversation was coming. It had been building ever since her name started trending online. "Yeah?" she replied, trying to keep her voice steady, even though her hands were shaking. "Listen, Jasmine. This whole thing with the media, it's becoming a distraction. You're making a name for yourself, but it's not good for the diner. People are coming in, expecting something special, and it's throwing everything off. I've been getting calls from the press, customers asking about you, and quite frankly, it's affecting business." Jasmine's chest tightened. She knew the diner wasn't exactly booming, but the last thing she wanted was for her dreams to be tied to something negative. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, her voice a little too sharp, "but I can't stop what's happening. I didn't plan for any of it." Mr. Harris crossed his arms. "I get it, but this is a business. I can't have distractions here. If you want to keep up with all this media attention and hang out with celebrities, that's fine. But you're going to have to make a choice. This diner or that path." Jasmine felt the pressure of his words weigh down on her. She had always kept her head down, never wanting to stir the pot. But now, it felt like her options were being stripped away. Her loyalty to the diner, to the customers, to her colleagues. It all felt like it was hanging by a thread. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she could balance both, but deep down, she knew that wasn't possible. She could feel the door to a new life opening, but in order to walk through it, she had to leave behind everything she had known. Jasmine took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. This wasn't just about her job. It was about everything she had worked for, her dreams, her future. If she stayed here, she would be stuck, forever trapped in the same cycle. But if she left, she would be taking a risk, a big one. I understand, she said finally, her voice steady. I've been thinking about it. I don't want to hold the diner back. I'm not sure how much longer I'll be here. Mr. Harris nodded, his expression tight. Well, if you decide to leave, don't let it be on bad terms. We'll figure it out. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Jasmine standing alone in the middle of the diner. Her heart was pounding in her chest. The weight of her decision was suffocating. But there was no turning back now. She knew she had to move forward. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Jasmine tried to keep her focus on her work, but her mind kept drifting to the upcoming event. She knew she couldn't stay in this job forever. The time had come to choose a new path. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the diner's windows, Jasmine stood by the counter and typed out a message on her phone. She hesitated before pressing send, knowing that this was the moment that would change everything. Jasmine, hi, Michael. I've made my decision. I'm ready to take the leap and come to the event. Let's do this. She stared at the message for a moment before hitting send, a sense of finality settling over her. The response was almost immediate. Michael Green, fantastic. We're so excited for you, Jasmine. We'll send over the details for travel and everything you need. This is just the beginning. Her heart skipped a beat. It was real now. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, and there was no turning back. The following day, Jasmine sat down with her mom, her stomach in knots. She had made her decision, but telling her mother still felt like the hardest part. Mom, Jasmine began, her voice quieter than usual. I'm leaving the diner. I've been offered a chance to do something more, and I can't let this opportunity slip away. Monica's face softened, and she took Jasmine's hand in hers. I'm so proud of you, honey. I know this isn't easy, but I see how much you've grown. You've been waiting for a sign, and now it's here. You're making the right choice. Jasmine nodded, though the doubt still lingered. I hope so. I don't want to disappoint anyone, but I know if I don't take this chance, I'll regret it forever. You won't disappoint anyone, Jasmine. You're doing this for you, and that's what matters, Monica said firmly. Just promise me one thing. Don't be afraid to chase your dreams. You've got a fire in you, and I don't want you to let fear hold you back. Jasmine's eyes welled up with tears. She had always felt like her dreams were too big, too impossible. But now, for the first time, it felt like maybe they weren't. That night, as she packed her bags for the trip, Jasmine couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. Her life was about to change, but the hardest part was knowing she was walking away from everything she had built so far. But in that moment, standing on the precipice of something new, she knew that this was the start of her true journey. She had taken the first step toward her dreams, and there was no turning back. The day had finally come. Jasmine stood in front of the mirror in her small apartment, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the collar of her dress. It was simple but elegant, just the right balance for a charity event that promised to be life-changing. She had never worn anything like this before. The dress, a deep emerald green, hugged her curves in all the right places, and the matching heels clicked on the floor as she paced nervously. Her reflection stared back at her, the woman she was, and the woman she was becoming. The woman who, just days ago, was working late shifts in a diner, and now she was about to step into the world of celebrities, philanthropists, and possibly her future. Jasmine took a deep breath, her mind racing. The nerves were overwhelming, but so was the excitement. She had dreamed of a moment like this her whole life, even though she had never expected it to come so suddenly, so unannounced. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, seeing Michael Green's name on the screen. He was the one who had arranged everything: flight details, accommodations, the event itself. Hey, Jasmine. Michael's cheerful voice came through the line. How are you doing? I just wanted to check in before everything kicks off tonight. I'm good. Just a little nervous, I guess, Jasmine said, her voice betraying her calm exterior. This is all happening so fast. I know it's a lot, but listen, you've got this. You belong here. Dwayne is really excited to meet you, and we've got a great night planned. Just enjoy yourself, and the rest will fall into place. Jasmine smiled, trying to shake off the nerves. Thanks, Michael. I'm trying to. It's just, everything's so new. You're going to do great. And don't forget, this is about the cause. Dwayne is all about giving back, and he believes in you. You're here for a reason. After the call, Jasmine took a moment to collect herself. She had to believe in what Michael had said. This wasn't some random stroke of luck. Dwayne and his team saw something in her, something she had started to believe in herself. She had worked hard, stayed strong, and now it was her turn to step into the spotlight. With a final glance in the mirror, Jasmine grabbed her purse, grabbed her ticket for the event, and walked out of the door. The drive to the venue felt like a dream. The car was sleek, black, and made her feel like someone important. As she arrived, the grand scale of the event struck her immediately. She could hear the faint hum of voices, the glint of cameras flashing in the distance, and the red carpet that stretched out before her. She was here. It was real. Jasmine felt her heart beat faster as she stepped out of the car. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was part of something bigger, something that could take her beyond the diner, beyond the life she had always known. There was a flurry of activity around her. Paparazzi snapping pictures, staff ushering guests inside, and security managing the crowd. Michael was there to greet her, and he smiled when he saw her approach. "You look amazing," he said, giving her a reassuring smile. "You're going to be just fine." "Thanks," Jasmine replied, still feeling like she was in some sort of daze. "This is all a little overwhelming." "You'll get used to it," Michael said. "Just follow my lead, and you'll be fine." Inside, the venue was dazzling. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, casting a soft, warm glow over the crowd. There were groups of people mingling, people Jasmine recognized from magazines and social media. The air was thick with conversation, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. Dwayne Johnson wasn't far off, surrounded by a small group of people. He was tall, imposing, but had an approachable warmth about him. He was smiling, laughing, talking with others. But when his eyes landed on Jasmine, there was a moment of recognition. It was subtle, but it was there. Michael leaned over to Jasmine. "He's excited to meet you. Let's go." They walked over to Dwayne, and as they approached, he stood up from the group, extending a hand to Jasmine. "Jasmine, it's so good to finally meet you," he said with a grin, his deep voice making her heart skip a beat. "I've heard so much about you. You're amazing." Jasmine took his hand, feeling the strength in his grip. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I don't even know where to start. This is all just so incredible." "Please call me Dwayne," he said warmly. "And no need to be nervous. You've already done something amazing just by being here. You stood up for what's right, and that's the kind of thing we need more of in this world." Jasmine couldn't help but smile. He was nothing like the intimidating star she had imagined. He was genuine, down-to-earth, and sincere. And for a moment, it felt like the rest of the room faded away. It was just the two of them, connecting over something bigger than either of them. "I'm just doing what I thought was right," Jasmine said, trying to keep her composure. "I never expected all this to come from it." "Well, sometimes the world has a way of rewarding people who stand tall in the face of adversity," Dwayne replied. "And you've got the kind of heart that deserves to be seen. I'm really excited for what's next for you." Jasmine felt a wave of emotion flood her chest. She hadn't expected this kind of validation, this kind of acknowledgement. It was overwhelming, and for a moment, she almost felt like she didn't belong. But then she realized, maybe she did. She was here for a reason. And this moment, this opportunity, was hers to seize. As the night unfolded, Jasmine found herself at ease in the company of people who were passionate about causes that mattered. She spoke to philanthropists, business moguls, and even some other celebrities who had come to support the event. But it was the conversations with Dwayne that stuck with her the most. They spoke about the importance of standing up for yourself, about how she had set an example not just in that diner, but in life. He talked about his own struggles, his rise to fame, and the importance of using influence to help others. "You've got a voice, Jasmine," he told her later in the evening, as they sat together for a brief moment away from the crowd. "People will listen to you. You don't have to be afraid to use it." Jasmine had never been one for public speaking or being in the spotlight, but she could feel something stirring inside of her, a realization that maybe, just maybe, she was meant to use her voice for something bigger than herself. When the night came to an end, and Jasmine stepped outside into the cool night air, she felt like a different person. She wasn't the woman who had been stuck in a small diner, dreaming of something more. She was someone with potential, with purpose, and with a future full of possibilities. The days following the charity event felt like a whirlwind. Jasmine barely had time to catch her breath before the next opportunity came knocking. Michael had kept in close contact, and soon after the event, he sent over a list of potential speaking engagements, mentorship programs, and collaborations that Dwayne Johnson and his team were working on. She had never imagined such doors could open for her, but now they were flung wide open, and all she had to do was step through. The first few days back in the city after the event were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and paperwork. Jasmine sat in her apartment, surrounded by brochures and emails, trying to make sense of it all. She had been offered a chance to speak at a youth empowerment conference in Los Angeles. There was also an opportunity to join a charity campaign aimed at supporting single mothers. It was everything she had ever wanted, and yet, it felt like too much all at once. Despite the excitement, Jasmine couldn't shake the weight of responsibility. Her life had changed overnight, and with it came the pressure to succeed. She was no longer just the woman who had served burgers and fries at a diner. She was a voice, someone who had the chance to influence others. But she was still learning how to navigate this new world. Jasmine sat on her couch, phone in hand, staring at the messages Michael had sent her. It was overwhelming, but there was a quiet voice in the back of her mind reminding her that she had earned this. She had made this happen. It wasn't some fluke. It was the result of years of perseverance and sacrifice. As she looked out the window, the streets of the city bustling below her, she realized just how much her perspective had shifted. She wasn't afraid of the future anymore. She was ready for it. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to go after what she truly wanted. That night, Jasmine went out for a walk to clear her mind. The city had a certain energy at night. Bright lights, busy streets, and people rushing to and from their destinations. But for the first time in a long while, Jasmine felt like she wasn't just part of the background. She was moving towards something bigger. As she walked through a small park near her apartment, her phone rang. It was Michael again. "Hey, Jasmine," Michael said, his tone upbeat as always. "I just wanted to check in with you. I've been looking at the upcoming events, and I think there's something that could be a great fit for you." Jasmine felt a spark of curiosity. "What's that?" "Well, there's this huge initiative happening in Miami, a summit on entrepreneurship for young women. It's a big deal, and we're looking for speakers who have a compelling story. We think you'd be perfect." Jasmine stopped in her tracks, the sound of distant traffic filling her ears. "Wait, you want me to speak at this summit?" "Me?" Michael chuckled. "Yes, exactly. You've got a story, Jasmine. People want to hear it, and we want to help you share it." The idea of speaking to a room full of ambitious young women sent a rush of adrenaline through her. It wasn't something she had ever considered, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized how much she wanted to give back. She had been given a chance, a platform, and now it was time to use it to help others. I think I'd like to do that," Jasmine said, her voice suddenly filled with confidence she hadn't expected. "When's the summit?" "It's in a couple of weeks," Michael replied. "We'll send over all the details, but this is a big opportunity, Jasmine. It's time to take that next step." She smiled to herself, her heart swelling with a sense of purpose. "I'm ready." Over the next few days, Jasmine threw herself into preparation. She practiced her speech in front of the mirror, fine-tuning her words and message. She spoke about her journey, how she had worked at the diner, how she had faced adversity, and how she had found the courage to speak up when it mattered most. She wanted her story to inspire, to show young women that they could break free from their circumstances and create the life they dreamed of. But as the days went on, Jasmine couldn't ignore the lingering doubts that crept into her mind. Was she really ready for this? Was she truly capable of speaking to a crowd of people who might look up to her? She had never been one for public speaking. It had always terrified her. But this was different. This was her chance to make an impact. The night before the summit, Jasmine stood by her window again, looking out over the city. It had been a long road to get here, and in so many ways, it still felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of what would happen next. But one thing had become clear. She wasn't afraid anymore. The fear had been replaced with excitement. She had spent years waiting for an opportunity, waiting for someone to give her a chance. Now, she was the one who had to step forward, who had to be brave enough to take the next leap. Her phone buzzed once more. This time, it was a message from Dwayne himself. Dwayne Johnson, Jasmine, I know this is big for you, and I just wanted to remind you, there's no one better for this. You've got everything it takes. Just be yourself. I'm rooting for you. You've already inspired so many, including me. Jasmine smiled, her heart racing. The words from Dwayne felt like a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't doing this alone. The next day, Jasmine flew to Miami for the summit. The moment she stepped off the plane, the excitement in her chest grew. She was finally here, on a stage where her story could make a difference. When she stood in front of the crowd, she could feel the nerves flood back. But she took a deep breath and thought about everything that had brought her to this moment. The long shifts at the diner, the struggles, the setbacks, and the hope that had kept her going. She began to speak, her voice steady as she shared her story. She talked about her journey, her struggles, and the people who had helped her along the way. And as she spoke, she felt something shift inside of her. She wasn't just telling a story. She was empowering others to find their voice, to stand up, and to never give up on their dreams. As the crowd applauded at the end of her speech, Jasmine felt an overwhelming sense of pride. She had done it. She had stepped into the woman she was always meant to be. And this was only the beginning. The applause still echoed in Jasmine's ears long after she stepped off the stage in Miami. The summit had been everything she had hoped for and more. As she walked back to the green room, she was met with congratulatory hugs and words of praise from women who had been deeply moved by her story. It felt surreal, like she was living someone else's life. Just a few months ago, she had been stuck in a routine, waiting on tables and struggling to make ends meet. And now she was speaking at prestigious events, inspiring people, and starting to feel the weight of the responsibility that came with it. But as much as she was basking in the glow of her success, there was still a part of her that was nervous about what would happen next. She had just crossed a threshold into an entirely new world. The spotlight was on her, and it was blinding in both its brilliance and its intensity. Later that evening, as the summit wrapped up and everyone gathered for a celebratory dinner, Jasmine couldn't help but notice how much had changed in such a short time. The women she spoke with were genuinely excited to get to know her, to ask about her journey and hear her thoughts on what had helped her succeed. She even spoke to a few people from major nonprofits who were interested in collaborating with her on initiatives for at-risk youth. But with all the excitement came the pressure to keep up the momentum. What was her next move? She couldn't just stop now. She had to keep pushing forward. Michael had kept her in the loop about the next few months, filled with speaking opportunities, charity events, and even possible collaborations with brands that aligned with her values. But as much as all of it seemed like a dream come true, Jasmine felt a sudden, overwhelming exhaustion. The reality was, she had been running nonstop since that night at the diner when she had stood up for Dwayne Johnson. Her life had shifted, and she hadn't stopped to process everything. Now, sitting alone in the quiet hotel room after the event, the weight of it all started to sink in. Her phone buzzed once again. This time, it was a message from Dwayne. Dwayne Johnson, Jasmine, I just wanted to say that you crushed it today. You've got a powerful voice, and you're making an impact. Don't let anyone or anything make you second-guess that. Stay true to who you are. Her heart warmed as she read his words. She had never imagined she'd be texting with someone like him, let alone receiving such words of encouragement. But it was exactly what she needed to hear. She sighed, setting the phone down beside her, but a new wave of anxiety followed. There was so much to do, so much pressure. She had so many people depending on her now, and she didn't want to let anyone down. Not Dwayne, not Michael, and certainly not the women who had looked up to her during her speech. But she also knew she couldn't keep running on empty. She needed to find balance. She needed to carve out time for herself, to remind herself why she started on this journey in the first place. The following week, Jasmine took a step back. She spent time reflecting on everything she had achieved. She took long walks, disconnected from social media, and spent a quiet afternoon writing in her journal. She needed clarity on where she wanted to go next and what truly mattered to her. One evening, as she sipped on a cup of tea in her apartment, the phone rang. It was Michael again. "Hey, Jasmine," he said, sounding a bit more serious than usual. "I know you've been busy, but I wanted to check in and see how you're holding up. The next few months are going to be packed with events, but I want to make sure you're okay, mentally, emotionally." Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. "I'm good, just a little overwhelmed, I guess. I never imagined it would be this intense. It's exciting, but it's a lot." Michael paused before speaking. "I get it. The spotlight can be a heavy thing to carry. But just remember, you don't have to do this alone. Dwayne and I are here for you. And we want to make sure you're not just taking every opportunity that comes your way, but that you're also staying true to yourself." His words were exactly what she needed to hear. She had been so focused on proving herself, on making sure she didn't miss any opportunities, that she had forgotten to listen to her own heart. "Thank you," she said softly. "I think I needed that reminder." "Anytime. Just don't forget to take care of you, Jasmine. That's the most important part of all this. And when you're ready, we'll help you take the next step. But only when you're ready." As she hung up the phone, Jasmine realized that she didn't have to rush. She had come so far, and now it was about finding her own rhythm. She didn't have to follow someone else's path. She could create her own. The next few months brought Jasmine into new circles. She traveled to conferences, attended high-profile charity events, and even began to explore her own entrepreneurial ventures, starting a small foundation focused on helping women and children in underserved communities. But through it all, she made sure to take moments for herself. She spent more time with her family and friends, grounding herself in the things that mattered most. Her relationship with Dwayne grew stronger too. They would occasionally check in, offering each other advice and encouragement. Dwayne had become a mentor to her, and his support was invaluable as she navigated her new life. By the time another big speaking opportunity came along, Jasmine felt more centered. She had learned to trust herself, to trust her instincts, and to stay true to her vision. When she stepped onto the stage once again, she wasn't just a woman with a story to tell. She was a woman who had found her purpose, her strength, and her voice. As the weeks passed, Jasmine's life began to fall into a new rhythm. She had mastered the art of balancing speaking engagements, charity work, and time for herself. Still, there was an underlying pressure. A pressure to constantly move forward, to always be on top of her game. People were counting on her now, and that weighed heavily on her shoulders. But then came the day that changed everything. It all began with a phone call. Jasmine was at her apartment, sitting at her kitchen table, sipping coffee and reviewing notes for an upcoming event. The soft hum of the city outside was a comforting background to the quiet buzz of her thoughts. She picked up her phone when it rang, noticing the caller ID. It was Michael. "Hey, Jasmine," Michael said, his voice sounding serious. "I've been thinking a lot about your next steps, and I want to talk to you about something important." Jasmine sat up straighter, immediately sensing that something was different. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Michael said quickly, "but there's an opportunity I want you to consider. Something that could really shift things for you. But it's a big decision." Jasmine's pulse quickened. "What kind of opportunity?" "I've been in talks with a major media company. They're interested in having you star in a documentary. It would follow your journey, your life, how you went from being a waitress to being the voice of change for so many people. It's a huge deal, Jasmine. They think you could be the face of something monumental." Her heart skipped a beat. A documentary? She couldn't help but picture her face on billboards, her story on the big screen. It felt surreal. "That's incredible, Michael. But is it really the right time for me? I mean, it sounds amazing, but I don't want to take on more than I can handle." Michael understood the hesitation in her voice. "I know this is a big ask, but think about it. This could be the platform to take your message to an even wider audience. You've already been doing incredible work, Jasmine, but this could be the thing that amplifies everything. It's not just about fame or recognition. It's about reaching more people who need to hear your story. Jasmine was silent for a moment, her thoughts racing. She had come so far. She had grown, learned, and adapted. But with every opportunity that came her way, she felt a little more torn. How much was too much? Was she still being true to herself, or was she just getting caught up in the whirlwind of success? I don't know, Michael, Jasmine said softly. It feels like a huge leap, and I'm afraid I might lose myself in it all. I've worked hard to get to where I am, but I don't want to change in a way that makes me forget where I came from. I get that, Jasmine, but think about this. You've already changed lives. This documentary could be a chance for you to help even more people. It's about telling your truth, and your truth has already had an impact. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, staring out the window. She thought about the young women she'd met at the summit, the people she'd connected with at various charity events, and the countless messages of support she'd received. She had made a difference in so many lives already, but what if she could do even more? What if this was the moment that took her impact to a whole new level? She exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the decision on her shoulders. I'll think about it, Michael. I need some time to process. The next few days were filled with quiet contemplation. Jasmine spent hours journaling, walking through the city, and reflecting on what she truly wanted from this journey. She had learned so much in such a short period of time. About the power of her voice, the importance of staying grounded, and the need to be true to her values. But she also knew that in order to grow, she had to embrace change. She couldn't let fear dictate her choices. If she wanted to make a lasting difference, she had to take risks. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings and emails, Jasmine found herself sitting in a small cafe. The lights outside glimmered softly, and the gentle hum of conversation filled the air. She pulled out her phone and read through the messages from people who had reached out to her. Some were words of encouragement, others were requests for interviews or collaborations. Her finger hovered over the screen. She had a choice to make. The documentary was more than just an opportunity. It was a way to expand her influence and further her mission to empower women, uplift her community, and continue to break barriers. But it would come with its own set of challenges. Jasmine closed her eyes for a moment, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. When she opened her eyes, she made up her mind. She was going to do it. She sent Michael a text. Jasmine, let's make it happen. I'm ready. The next few months were a whirlwind of meetings, filming, and media appearances. The documentary was officially in production, and the team worked closely with Jasmine to capture her journey in a way that felt authentic and raw. They followed her as she worked with various charities, met with influential figures, and traveled to different parts of the country to speak to women who had been inspired by her story. But it wasn't all glamorous. There were long days, moments of doubt, and challenges Jasmine had never anticipated. She had to open up in ways that felt vulnerable, sharing parts of her past that she had never fully faced. She talked about her struggles with self-worth, the pain of being underestimated, and the sacrifices she had made to get to where she was. Through it all, Jasmine remained grounded. She found strength in her community, in her friends, and in the family who had always supported her. She stayed true to her mission, to help others, to inspire them, and to use her platform for good. And with each passing day, Jasmine realized that she wasn't just telling her story. She was changing lives. The documentary premiered to a sold-out audience, and the response was overwhelming. Critics praised it for its raw honesty and powerful message. Jasmine's story became a symbol of hope and resilience, inspiring even more people to pursue their dreams and fight for their futures. In that moment, standing on stage at the premiere, Jasmine knew that she had made the right choice. The spotlight, though bright, no longer felt like a burden. It was a beacon, guiding her toward even greater things. And as she looked out into the crowd, she realized that this was just the beginning. The premiere of the documentary was a night Jasmine would never forget. The flashing lights, the reporters, the energy in the air. It was everything she had imagined and more. As she walked the red carpet, it was impossible not to feel the weight of the moment. She had gone from a quiet, small-town waitress to the center of attention on one of the biggest stages in the world. But it wasn't the glitz and glamour that stood out to her. It was the people she had met along the way, the lives she had touched, and the impact she was now making. The night was filled with heartfelt speeches, inspiring conversations, and an overwhelming sense of pride. The documentary, which had chronicled her journey from the diner to the stage, had struck a chord with everyone who saw it. It wasn't just her story. It was the story of anyone who had ever faced adversity and found the courage to rise above it. But as much as Jasmine appreciated the applause, the real reward was knowing that her message had reached people. She had inspired women to dream bigger, to fight for their futures, and to believe that change was possible. As the night came to a close, she found herself standing alone for a moment, looking out at the sea of people. It was surreal. For so long, she had dreamed of making a difference, of having a platform to speak her truth. Now, she was living that dream. But even as she basked in the glow of success, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to be done. The next morning, Jasmine woke up early, the sun shining brightly through the windows of her hotel room. She had always been an early riser, and today, the excitement of the night before still buzzed through her veins. But as she sat by the window, sipping her coffee, her mind wandered. What was next for her? She had made it to this point, but where did she want to go from here? There was still so much she wanted to accomplish, so many causes she wanted to champion, so many people she wanted to help. Her platform was growing, and with it, her sense of responsibility. She could feel the weight of it, but it wasn't a burden. It was a call to action. Jasmine knew that if she wanted to continue making an impact, she couldn't just focus on herself. She had to focus on the bigger picture, on the causes that mattered most. She had always believed that success was about more than just personal achievement. It was about lifting others up and creating opportunities for those who needed it the most. The next few weeks were filled with meetings, brainstorming sessions, and conversations with people who shared her vision. She began working on a new project, a mentorship program aimed at providing young women from underserved communities with the tools, resources, and support they needed to achieve their dreams. It was an ambitious undertaking, but Jasmine was more determined than ever. This was the next step. Her phone rang, breaking her train of thought. It was Michael. "Hey, Jasmine," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "I've got something you're going to want to hear. I just spoke with a few major organizations who are eager to partner with you for the mentorship program. They're all on board." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. "Really?" "Yeah, they're ready to jump in. They believe in what you're doing, Jasmine. And so do I. This could be huge. We could help thousands of young women." Her mind raced. This was it, the moment she had been working toward. Her dream of making a lasting impact was within reach. But there was still so much to do. She couldn't afford to waste any time. "I'm in," Jasmine said, her voice steady with determination. "Let's make it happen." Over the next several months, Jasmine threw herself into the mentorship program with everything she had. She worked with schools, nonprofits, and corporations to build a network of support for young women who were looking to break free from their circumstances. The program offered scholarships, internships, and job placements, as well as one-on-one mentorship with successful women who could guide them on their journey. But it wasn't just about the resources. It was about creating a community of women who could lean on each other, who could share their struggles, their victories, and their dreams. Jasmine wanted to create a space where young women could feel empowered to go after what they wanted, knowing that they were not alone. As the program took off, Jasmine felt a sense of fulfillment she had never experienced before. She was finally able to give back in a way that felt authentic and meaningful. She was creating opportunities for the next generation of women leaders, and there was no greater reward than that. At one of the program's first big events, Jasmine stood in front of a crowd of young women, some of whom had come from the very same background she had. Their eyes were filled with hope, and their smiles reflected the belief that their dreams were not only possible but within reach. Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat as she took the stage. She had come so far, but it wasn't just her journey she was celebrating. It was theirs. "I want you all to remember one thing," Jasmine said, her voice strong and clear. "No matter where you come from, no matter what your story is, you have the power to create your future. You are worthy of every success you dream of. And I promise you, if I can do it, so can you." The room erupted in applause, and Jasmine smiled, her heart swelling with pride. She had given these young women a chance, just as someone had given her that chance so many years ago. As Jasmine stood on the stage, looking out at the sea of hopeful faces, she realized that this was what she had been working for all along. The spotlight, the fame, the recognition, it was all part of the journey. But the real purpose, the real reason for everything she had done, was to create a legacy, to show the world that anything was possible, no matter where you started. And as she looked toward the future, Jasmine knew that this was just the beginning. There was so much more to be done, so many lives still to touch, so many doors still to open. The horizon was wide, and Jasmine was ready to embrace whatever came next. The days following the launch of Jasmine's mentorship program were filled with excitement and anticipation. The media buzz was intense, the support from the community was overwhelming, and the stories of young women who were now on the path to brighter futures flooded in. Everything seemed to be falling into place, and Jasmine felt a sense of pride that no achievement in her career had quite matched. But as the program grew, so did the challenges. There was a part of Jasmine that had always been prepared for the hard work. She had learned long ago that success wasn't handed to you on a silver platter. She had faced adversity before, and she knew what it felt like to fight for every opportunity. But this was different. The pressure was mounting in ways she hadn't anticipated, and the toll it took on her mental and emotional well-being was beginning to show. It started with small signs: feeling drained after long days, struggling to stay present in conversations, and waking up with an underlying sense of anxiety that wouldn't go away. Then came the moments when self-doubt crept in. Was she really making a difference? Was her work enough? The weight of these questions began to settle like a heavy cloud over her, threatening to overshadow everything she had worked so hard to build. Jasmine tried to push through it. She told herself that this was just a phase, that she had been through tough times before, and this, too, would pass. But it didn't. The exhaustion lingered, and it started to affect her interactions with the women she mentored. She had always been a source of energy, a beacon of hope for those around her, but now her light felt dimmer. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of meetings and fundraising events, Jasmine found herself in a rare moment of solitude. She sat on the couch in her apartment, staring at the television but not really watching it. Her phone sat beside her, buzzing with notifications from the mentorship program's social media accounts, positive messages, thank you notes, and requests for interviews. But none of it felt real anymore. The weight of the messages felt suffocating, like she was being pulled in 1,000 different directions. Her phone buzzed again, and this time it was a message from Dwayne. Dwayne Johnson: "Hey Jasmine, I know things are moving fast for you right now. I just wanted to check in. How are you really doing?" Jasmine stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the screen. She had always admired Dwayne for his resilience, his ability to balance so many things while staying grounded. But right now, Jasmine didn't feel grounded. She didn't feel like herself. She thought about replying, but the truth was, she didn't know how to answer. How could she admit to him, someone she respected so much, that she was struggling? But as she thought about it, a small voice inside her told her that this was exactly why she needed to respond. So, with a deep breath, she typed out a message. "Jasmine, I'm honestly not sure, Dwayne. I feel like I'm carrying so much right now, and I'm just tired. I've been trying to keep up with everything, but sometimes it feels like too much. I don't know how to keep going when I feel like I'm losing myself." She stared at the message for a moment before sending it. Her heart raced, unsure of what Dwayne would say. But the reply came faster than she expected. "Dwayne Johnson: Jasmine, listen to me. You don't have to do this alone. I've been there. The pressure, the exhaustion, it can make you feel like you're losing control. But that's when you need to step back. Take a break. Get recentered. You can't pour from an empty cup. You've done incredible things, but now it's time to take care of yourself. I'm here for you, no matter what." Jasmine felt a weight lift off her shoulders as she read his words. There was something incredibly reassuring about hearing from someone who had been through the grind and come out stronger on the other side. He was right. She couldn't keep going without replenishing herself. She had always put others first, and now it was time to remember that her own well-being was just as important. The next day, Jasmine made a decision. She would take a break, a real one. She knew that she couldn't continue at this pace without losing herself in the process. She needed time to recharge, to reconnect with the things that brought her peace, and to regain her sense of clarity. Jasmine called Michael later that afternoon. "Michael," she said, her voice firm but calm, "I need to take a step back. I've been pushing myself too hard, and it's starting to affect everything I'm doing. I need to reset. I need time for myself." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Michael spoke. "I get it, Jasmine. I've seen it in your eyes these past few weeks. You've been doing incredible work, but you can't help anyone if you're running on empty. Take the time you need. We'll keep things running smoothly on this end. You've earned it." Jasmine felt a wave of relief wash over her. It was hard to admit that she needed time off, but hearing Michael's support made all the difference. Jasmine took the next 2 weeks off from everything. No meetings, no events, no phone calls. She spent her days taking long walks in the park, meditating, and reflecting on what had led her here. She revisited her old journals, reminding herself of her original mission and the fire that had once driven her. She spent time with her family, reconnecting with the people who had been her foundation. And, most importantly, she allowed herself to be vulnerable, to admit that it was okay to need a break, that it was okay to not have all the answers. When the 2 weeks were over, Jasmine returned to her work with a renewed sense of purpose. She had taken the time to rest, to recharge, and to gain clarity on where she wanted to go next. The pressure was still there, but now, she knew how to handle it. She had learned the importance of self-care, of setting boundaries, and of asking for help when needed. Jasmine returned to the mentorship program with new energy. She was still the same woman who had started this journey, but she was wiser now, stronger too. The battle that had been hidden beneath the surface was no longer something to be ashamed of. It was part of her story, part of what made her resilient. And as she stood before the young women she mentored, speaking at another event, she realized something that she hadn't fully understood before. Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. But those battles, too, are worth fighting. The days after Jasmine returned from her much-needed break were a blend of renewed energy and cautious optimism. She had learned a valuable lesson during her time off. Progress wasn't just about pushing harder, but also about pacing herself, listening to her body and mind, and knowing when to take a step back. Now, with a clear head and a revived spirit, she was more determined than ever to make a lasting impact with her mentorship program. The first few weeks back felt different. She approached everything with a fresh perspective. Jasmine began prioritizing deeper connections with the women she mentored, taking time to really understand their dreams and struggles. Instead of simply being a source of inspiration, she became an active listener, offering guidance based on their individual journeys. It was no longer just about helping them climb the ladder. It was about walking alongside them every step of the way, cheering them on, but also offering support when they faltered. It didn't take long for Jasmine to notice a shift. The young women she mentored weren't just benefiting from the program. They were becoming leaders in their own right. They were paying it forward, helping their peers, and reaching out to others in their communities. It was a ripple effect, and Jasmine couldn't have been prouder. One afternoon, while meeting with a group of young women at a community center, Jasmine received a call from an unknown number. She debated ignoring it, but something inside her nudged her to answer. "Hello?" she said, her voice light but cautious. "Jasmine?" The voice on the other end was familiar, but she couldn't quite place it. "This is Jasmine. Who's calling?" "It's Marcus," the voice replied. "Marcus from the nonprofit we worked with a few months ago. I wanted to share something with you." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. Marcus had been one of the first people she had worked with when she started the mentorship program, helping her connect with local charities. "Of course. How's everything going?" "I've been keeping track of the mentorship program's progress, and I've got to tell you, the results are astounding," Marcus said. "But here's the thing. The impact you're making is reaching far beyond what we originally envisioned. We've received requests from other organizations across the country wanting to partner with you to replicate what you're doing in their own communities." Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. "Wait, what? That's incredible." "It is," Marcus agreed. We've even heard from some bigger players in the nonprofit world who want to invest. This could be the start of something huge, Jasmine. You could be the catalyst for a national movement." Jasmine's mind raced. The possibility of her mentorship program expanding was exciting, but it was also overwhelming. The thought of reaching thousands more women, of scaling her work beyond what she had initially imagined, was both thrilling and intimidating. "I don't know, Marcus," Jasmine said hesitantly. "I'm still trying to find the right balance with what we're doing now. I'm not sure I'm ready to take this on in a bigger way." "I get it," Marcus said, his voice calm and understanding, "but I want you to think about it. You've already laid the groundwork. You've already shown what's possible. This could be your chance to change even more lives." Jasmine sat in silence, absorbing the weight of his words. She had always envisioned her program growing, but the reality of being responsible for something much bigger, felt daunting. Was she ready for this next step? After a few moments of reflection, Jasmine finally spoke. "Let me think it over," she said softly. "I'll need some time to figure out what this would look like, but thank you for bringing this to me. I'm honored that people believe in the program enough to want to support it." Marcus's voice was full of warmth. "Take your time. We'll be here when you're ready." Over the next few days, Jasmine found herself in deep contemplation. The offer to expand the mentorship program felt like a dream come true, but the weight of that dream carried with it a responsibility she wasn't sure she was prepared for. Could she handle the pressure of managing a national initiative? Could she stay true to her mission while navigating the complexities of scaling a movement? She spent time talking with her close circle of friends and mentors, including Dwayne, who had become a constant source of guidance throughout her journey. When she explained the opportunity to him, he didn't hesitate. "Jasmine," he said, his voice calm yet resolute, "you're ready for this. You've built something amazing, and the people who believe in you see the vision. You've faced bigger challenges before and come out stronger. This is just the next chapter." Jasmine smiled, feeling the comfort of his words. "I want to do it, Dwayne. I want to help more women, but I'm scared of losing control. I don't want to lose the personal touch, the connection we've built with the people in the program." "You won't," he reassured her. "Just make sure you surround yourself with a team who shares your vision. People who understand what matters most to you and the women you're serving. You've got this." His encouragement was just the push Jasmine needed. She realized that she didn't have to do this alone. With the right team, she could build something that stayed true to its roots, something that had a ripple effect, not just on the women in the program, but on the world around them. The next few weeks were filled with intense planning and collaboration. Jasmine reached out to key individuals and organizations that could help scale the mentorship program. She focused on forming partnerships with those who shared her passion for empowering women, and she worked tirelessly to build a strong support system. As the months passed, Jasmine began to see the impact of her efforts in a way she had never imagined. The program had expanded to several new cities, and with each new participant, there was a renewed sense of hope and possibility. The women who had once been on the receiving end of mentorship were now becoming mentors themselves, creating a cycle of empowerment that spread across the country. One afternoon, as Jasmine sat at her desk reviewing the latest reports on the program's expansion, she received another call from Marcus. "We've got big news," he said, his voice full of excitement. "The program is officially being recognized by one of the top national women's advocacy groups. They're endorsing what you're doing, Jasmine. This is a huge moment." Jasmine's heart raced. "Wow, that's incredible. I can't believe this is really happening." "It is," Marcus said, "and it's all thanks to you and the work you've put in. Your vision is inspiring change, Jasmine. The ripple effect is real." Jasmine looked out the window, a sense of pride and fulfillment washing over her. She had taken the leap, faced the uncertainty, and chosen to believe in herself. And now, she was watching the ripple of change spread further than she ever thought possible. Jasmine had always believed that change happened through collective action, through bringing together people from different walks of life to build something greater than themselves. But even she couldn't have predicted the unexpected alliances that were about to form, propelling her mentorship program into the next phase of growth. One afternoon, as Jasmine was hosting a strategic meeting with her team, her assistant popped her head into the room. "Jasmine, "There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Jasmine frowned, wondering who could possibly be looking for her during a crucial planning session. "Who is it?" she asked. "It's Emily Stevens," the assistant replied, her voice a mix of surprise and curiosity. Jasmine paused. Emily Stevens. The name was familiar, but only in passing. Emily was a prominent businesswoman, a corporate powerhouse with a reputation for being tough, calculated, and, some would say, ruthless. Her company had made headlines countless times for their bold business moves, and she wasn't exactly known for her philanthropic efforts. If anything, Emily's focus had always been on profit margins, not community initiatives. Jasmine exchanged a quick glance with her team before nodding. "Send her in." The door opened, and in walked Emily Stevens, dressed in a sleek business suit that screamed power. She carried herself with an air of authority, her piercing gaze scanning the room before landing on Jasmine. "Miss Stevens," Jasmine said, standing to greet her, her tone neutral but curious. "What brings you here?" Emily wasted no time getting to the point. "I've been following your mentorship program, and I'll admit, I've been impressed," she said, her voice clipped. "I believe what you're doing is important. But here's the thing. I can help you do it bigger. Much bigger." Jasmine felt a spark of suspicion. Emily Stevens didn't do anything without a significant return on investment. What was she after? "I'm listening," Jasmine said cautiously, folding her arms. Emily took a seat across from her, leaning forward slightly. "I have access to resources, funding, connections, partnerships that you won't be able to tap into on your own. I'm offering you an opportunity to take your program nationwide, to get the kind of corporate backing that can make all the difference. I'm talking about reaching hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of women." Jasmine's heart raced. The idea was enticing, but she wasn't naive. She had learned long ago that deals like these often came with strings attached. She needed to know what Emily's true intentions were. "What's in it for you?" Jasmine asked, her voice steady but skeptical. Emily didn't flinch. "I'm not interested in a return for myself. You'll have full control over your program. I'm offering this because I see the potential. But I won't lie, I want to make a difference too. And I believe we can do that together." Jasmine studied her carefully. She could feel the weight of the offer, the pressure to take the chance. But she couldn't ignore the voice in the back of her mind that warned her to proceed with caution. Emily's reputation as a businesswoman preceded her, and Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this offer than Emily was letting on. "I don't know if I can trust you," Jasmine said, her voice firm. "What's your angle?" Emily didn't seem put off by the question. "I've seen enough of what's happening in the world of business to know that if we don't start investing in people, really investing in people, then all the profits in the world won't matter. I've had the privilege of a successful career, but I know that real success, real fulfillment, comes from lifting others up. This is my chance to do that." The sincerity in her voice caught Jasmine off guard. For a moment, the room felt heavy with the weight of Emily's words. Jasmine had never expected someone like Emily Stevens to speak so openly about giving back. But was it enough to trust her? "I'll need to think about it," Jasmine said, her mind swirling with possibilities. "This is a huge decision." Emily nodded, not pushing further. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few days, Jasmine wrestled with the decision. She consulted her team, reaching out to her most trusted allies, Michael, Dwayne, and a few close mentors. They all had the same question. Was Emily's offer genuine, or was it a business move disguised as charity? Michael, as always, was straightforward. "Jasmine, this could be your chance to take the program to a whole new level. But don't rush into anything. Make sure the partnership aligns with your values. The last thing you want is to lose control over something you've worked so hard to build." Dwayne's advice echoed similar sentiments. "If Emily truly wants to help, she'll let you lead. But if the minute things start to shift and you feel like you're losing your voice, it's time to walk away. This is your vision. Don't let anyone hijack it." Jasmine spent hours reflecting, weighing the pros and cons. There was no denying that the resources Emily could bring to the table could accelerate the program in ways Jasmine had never imagined. But the risk of losing the essence of the program, of becoming just another corporate initiative, was too great. Finally, Jasmine reached a decision. She called Emily. "Miss Stevens," she began, her voice calm but resolute. "I've thought about your offer, and I think we can make this work. But I need one thing from you: complete transparency and trust. If we're going to do this, you'll have to be willing to let me keep the vision intact. This is about empowering women, not just about business." Emily's response was quick and confident. "You have my word, Jasmine. I believe in what you're doing. This is about making a difference. I'll support you every step of the way." It was a risk, no doubt, but Jasmine was willing to take it. She knew that if Emily was truly committed to helping her program succeed, their partnership could be transformative. She would remain vigilant, but for now, she was ready to embrace the opportunity. In the following months, Jasmine and Emily worked closely together, navigating the complexities of expanding the mentorship program. Emily's network and resources made a significant impact, opening doors that Jasmine never thought possible. But Emily also proved to be more than just a business ally. She genuinely cared about the mission. Together, they forged a partnership that brought the program to national attention, and the ripple effect was felt far and wide. But the most surprising outcome of all wasn't the media coverage or the corporate endorsements. It was the bond Jasmine had formed with Emily, a woman who, despite her tough exterior, had shown vulnerability and a willingness to change. For Jasmine, this was the power of unlikely alliances, the reminder that sometimes, the people who seem the most different from us are the ones who can make the greatest impact. As Jasmine's mentorship program soared to new heights, the weight of success began to feel heavier than she ever anticipated. The nationwide expansion was proving to be a success, but with every new city, new partner, and new mentee, Jasmine found herself struggling to keep up with the constant demands. She had managed to keep her personal life intact, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to balance her responsibilities without feeling like she was losing control. The pressure came in waves: constant calls, meetings with potential investors, strategic planning sessions, and media appearances. Even with Emily's support and the financial backing from various corporate sponsors, there was no escaping the mounting stress. Jasmine was no longer just a mentor to a small group of women. She was now the face of a national movement, and the expectations were sky-high. One evening, after a long day of back-to-back meetings, Jasmine sat in her office, her head resting on her hands. She had a mountain of emails to sift through, an upcoming fundraising event to finalize, and an endless list of to-dos for the expansion. Her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking her moment of silence. She had a mountain of emails to sift through, an upcoming fundraising event to finalize, and an endless list of to-dos for the expansion. Her phone buzzed on the desk, breaking her moment of silence. "Jasmine," it was Dwayne's voice. His tone was light, but she could tell he was concerned. "You still awake?" "I'm here," Jasmine replied, her voice heavy, "just trying to catch up on everything. It's been one of those days." "I figured as much," Dwayne said. "Listen, I know you're working hard, but I've been hearing from some of your team members. People are worried. You're burning the candle at both ends." Jasmine sighed, glancing at the pile of papers before her. "I don't know what else to do. The program's growing faster than I ever expected, and I'm trying to keep up with everything. I feel like if I stop for even a second, everything will fall apart." "You don't have to do it all yourself," Dwayne said gently. "You've built a great team. You've got Emily backing you. You're not in this alone. And most importantly, don't forget why you started this in the first place. It wasn't to burn yourself out. It was to make a difference, right?" Jasmine was quiet for a moment, reflecting on his words. Dwayne was right. She had always believed in the power of collaboration, but somehow, in the whirlwind of success, she had lost sight of that. She had been trying to shoulder everything, to be the face of the program, the mentor, the leader, and in the process, she was forgetting to take care of herself. "I just don't know if I'm cut out for this," Jasmine said, the vulnerability in her voice evident. Dwayne's voice softened. "Jasmine, you're more than capable, but you need to take a step back, even if it's just for a moment. Trust your team, trust yourself, and remember, it's okay to ask for help." Jasmine smiled faintly, appreciating his unwavering support. "Thanks, Dwayne. I think I needed to hear that." The next morning, Jasmine made a decision. She was going to delegate more. She was going to take the advice to heart and trust the people she had carefully chosen to be part of her team. It was time to lean on Emily, her staff, and even Dwayne more than ever before. She called Emily into her office later that afternoon. "We need to talk," Jasmine said, her tone more serious than usual. Emily raised an eyebrow, her businesslike demeanor giving way to curiosity. "What's going on?" "I'm starting to feel overwhelmed," Jasmine admitted. "I've been doing too much on my own, and I can't keep up. I need to delegate more, and I need you to help me figure out how we can structure this to keep everything running smoothly without me having to be in every single meeting." Emily nodded, clearly understanding the gravity of the situation. "Jasmine, you've done an incredible job, but I've seen this before. I'll help you reorganize things. We can bring in some more people to handle the day-to-day operations, and I can assist with the fundraising efforts. You don't have to be everywhere at once." Jasmine let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you. I've been afraid that if I step back even a little, everything will fall apart. But I see now that it's not just my responsibility. It's about the collective effort." Emily's eyes softened, a rare look of warmth crossing her face. "Exactly. You've built something powerful, but it's not just about you. You're the vision, but the team is what makes it happen. Let us help you carry the load." The weeks that followed marked a shift in how Jasmine approached her role. She stopped trying to do everything herself and instead leaned into the strength of her team. Emily took on more of the corporate partnerships and fundraising, while the core team managed the logistics of the program's expansion. Jasmine took the time to reconnect with the women she mentored, providing them with the guidance and support they needed, but without the constant stress of managing every aspect of the program. One afternoon, as Jasmine was walking through the center with a group of young women, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She realized how much she had been missing by trying to control every detail. Now, with the support of her team, she could focus on what truly mattered, empowering the women in front of her. Later that evening, she received a message from Dwayne. "How are you feeling?" it read. Jasmine smiled as she typed her response. "Better. Much better. Thanks for reminding me to trust the process and my team." The next morning, as Jasmine walked into the office, she was greeted with a new sense of purpose. The weight of the pressure still existed, but it no longer felt unbearable. She was no longer alone in this. And with that realization, Jasmine knew that the program was destined for even greater things. Not because she was carrying it alone, but because she was finally allowing others to carry it with her. Jasmine was beginning to find her balance, but as the program continued to grow, she faced challenges that even the best-laid plans couldn't have prepared her for. Just when she thought the worst of the pressure was behind her, new storms began to gather on the horizon. It started with a few complaints from participants. Some felt that the program wasn't meeting their expectations, that it had lost its personal touch with the rapid expansion. Others voiced concerns about the growing number of corporate partners, fearing that the program was shifting its focus from empowering women to simply checking boxes for sponsorships. Jasmine listened carefully, taking each concern seriously, but she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that the program was losing its true heart, the very thing that had made it successful in the first place. The storm intensified when a few key mentors within the program began to voice their frustrations. They felt that their voices weren't being heard as decisions were made about the future of the program. A few even threatened to walk away if the direction didn't change. Emily, who had been instrumental in managing the corporate side of things, was concerned but confident they could smooth things over. "We've dealt with these kinds of bumps before, Jasmine," she reassured her one evening. "This is just a natural part of scaling. We'll find a way to address their concerns, and we'll keep the program growing strong." But Jasmine wasn't so sure. The discontent was spreading like wildfire, and the last thing she wanted was for the program to crumble under the weight of its success. She found herself in an internal battle. On one hand, she knew she had to keep pushing forward, but on the other, she couldn't help but feel responsible for the growing dissatisfaction among the very people she had promised to support. One night, after another long day of meetings and crisis management, Jasmine went for a walk. The cool night air felt like a welcome escape from the chaos of her mind. She walked for miles, trying to sort through the mess in her head, wondering if she was losing sight of the original purpose of her work. Was all of this success worth it if she was losing the connection to the women who had trusted her in the first place? Her phone buzzed as she walked. It was a message from Dwayne. "Hey, how's everything going? I know it's been a crazy week." Jasmine paused, reading the message as she walked. She hadn't been able to bring herself to talk to him about the issues the program was facing. She had always relied on his encouragement, but now she felt as though she was failing. She typed a response, her fingers hesitating over the keys as she tried to find the right words. "It's been tough. The program is growing, but I'm starting to feel like we're losing what made it special. There's a lot of discontent among the mentors and participants. People are feeling like they're not being heard, and I'm not sure how to fix it." The reply came quickly. "I get it. But Jasmine, this isn't the end. You've always known that growth comes with challenges. This is a turning point, but not a defeat. You've built something real, something people care about. It's just going to take time to figure out the next step." Jasmine stared at the screen, feeling the weight of his words sink in. It was true. This wasn't the end. It was just a setback, a test of resilience. But the uncertainty she felt was overwhelming. The following days were filled with tension. Jasmine decided to call a meeting with the core team, the mentors, and even a few of the participants who had voiced their concerns. She needed to hear it straight from the people who were most affected by the changes, and she wanted to be transparent about where she stood. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was necessary. When the meeting began, Jasmine felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. But as she looked around the room, she realized that these people weren't here to tear her down. They were here because they still cared about the program, about the women they served, and about each other. "I know that things haven't been perfect," Jasmine started, her voice steady but full of emotion. "And I can't sit here and pretend that everything is going according to plan. I hear your concerns. I see what's happening, and I want you to know that I'm taking this seriously." The room was quiet as everyone listened, some with crossed arms, others with their eyes fixed on Jasmine. She could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on her, but she wasn't about to back down. "We've grown so much, but in doing so, we've lost some of the personal touch that made this program so special. And that's on me," she continued, pausing for a moment to let the words sink in. "I've been so focused on scaling, on making this bigger, that I've lost sight of what really matters. The relationships, the individual stories, the support we give each other." There was a soft murmur in the room as the mentors and participants nodded. Jasmine's vulnerability seemed to break down the walls between them. "I want us to find a way forward together," she said. "I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers, but I do know this. We can't lose sight of the people we're here to help. We have to keep the heart of this program alive, no matter how big it gets." One of the senior mentors, Claire, spoke up. "Jasmine, it's clear that you care. We all know how much this means to you, but we need to go back to basics. We need to create smaller, more intimate spaces for the women in the program to connect. We can still scale, but we can't let it overshadow the personal relationships we've built." Others chimed in, offering ideas and suggestions. Jasmine felt a sense of relief as the group began brainstorming solutions. It wasn't going to be easy, but they were all in this together. Later that evening, after the meeting, Jasmine sat alone in her office, reflecting on the progress they'd made. The storm wasn't over, but it felt like the clouds were starting to part. She had faced the hard truth. The program needed a course correction, but she had the support of her team, and together, they could weather this storm. She looked at her phone again, the screen illuminated in the quiet of the room. There was a message from Dwayne. "You did the right thing today. Trust yourself. This is just another challenge, and you're going to come out even stronger on the other side." Jasmine smiled, grateful for his constant support. She knew that the journey was far from over, but now she felt ready for the challenges ahead. It wasn't about avoiding the storm. It was about learning how to navigate through it. The air in the office felt different now. The tension that had once loomed over Jasmine and her team began to dissipate, but only after they'd made some hard decisions about the direction of the program. It was clear that the days ahead wouldn't be easy, but there was a sense of renewed energy in the team as they navigated through their challenges. Jasmine had never been one to shy away from a fight, but this time, the battle was different. It wasn't about her. It was about the women who depended on the program, the community she had built, and the heart of the mission that had driven her from the start. Every decision she made felt heavier now, more consequential. But the burden was no longer hers alone. After the meeting with her core team, where they had discussed course corrections and how to better balance the program's growth with its core values, Jasmine was determined to implement the changes they had discussed. She knew there was still work to do to rebuild the trust that had been shaken in recent months, but the road ahead was clearer than ever before. She had learned an important lesson. No matter how big the program became, it couldn't lose its personal touch. The heart of the work, the connections, the mentorship, the real impact, had to remain at the forefront. They had to find a way to scale that didn't sacrifice the intimacy and authenticity that had made their success possible in the first place. It was the kind of realization that hit you hard but left you stronger. The first change Jasmine made was to reintroduce smaller, more intimate events, workshops, group gatherings, and one-on-one mentorship sessions back into the program. It was a delicate balance. She didn't want to turn back the clock and undo the progress they had made, but she knew that people didn't just join the program for access to resources or sponsors. They joined because they wanted a community, a support system, and someone to believe in them. The next few weeks were busy but purposeful. Jasmine spent time with the mentors and participants, listening to their stories, offering advice, and recalibrating the way the program operated. She worked closely with Claire, one of the senior mentors, to create a new structure that would allow the program to grow without losing its personal touch. One afternoon, as Jasmine was preparing for an upcoming event, she received a call from Emily. She hadn't heard from her in a few days, and after the tension from earlier in the month, Jasmine wasn't sure what to expect. "Jasmine," Emily's voice crackled through the phone. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other day about the direction of the program, and I want you to know, I'm with you on this." Jasmine was quiet for a moment, appreciating the sentiment. "What do you mean?" "I'm all in. I know we've been focused on the corporate side of things, and I've seen the concerns, but I'm willing to put my weight behind the changes you're making. We can still work with our partners, but I want to help you restore the community feel. Let's scale in a way that actually benefits the women. No more checking the box for sponsors. Let's make this about the impact, not the profit margins." Jasmine could hear the sincerity in Emily's voice, and for the first time in weeks, a sense of relief washed over her. She had spent so much time battling the corporate side of the program, questioning whether the mission had been compromised. But hearing Emily's commitment gave Jasmine a renewed sense of confidence that she wasn't alone in this. "Thank you, Emily," Jasmine replied. "It means a lot to me that you're willing to stand behind these changes. I couldn't do this without support from people like you." Emily's response was firm, almost maternal. "I know you're capable of making this work, Jasmine. Just remember, you're leading a movement, not just a business. The heart of this is what matters most." The weeks that followed were a turning point in Jasmine's journey. As she began implementing the changes, she found that her relationship with the women in the program was deepening once again. She saw their faces light up when they could attend smaller workshops, have one-on-one sessions with mentors, and connect with others who understood their struggles. There was a renewed sense of purpose in the air, as though everyone had been waiting for the program to return to its roots. But the biggest turning point wasn't just the program's transformation. It was Jasmine herself. She had started to find peace in her role, learning to trust the team around her and to lean into the collective effort. She didn't have to bear the weight alone. She had always known this, but now, more than ever, she understood that leadership didn't mean controlling everything. It meant empowering others to do their part. One afternoon, as Jasmine prepared for a major event in Chicago, she received a message from Dwayne. "How's everything going? I've been keeping up with your progress, and I'm proud of you." She smiled as she read the message. It had been a while since they'd had a chance to sit down and talk. Jasmine quickly typed a response. "Things are looking up. I think we're on the right track now. It's been a rough few weeks, but I feel like I'm finally finding my footing again. Thanks for always being there when I needed a reminder." Dwayne's reply came moments later. "I knew you would. You've got the heart for this, Jasmine. Just keep your focus on what matters: impact, growth, and staying true to who you are. I'm rooting for you." Jasmine felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She knew the journey wasn't over, and there would be more challenges ahead. But for the first time in months, she felt a sense of calm, a sense of purpose that was grounded in the work she had started so many years ago. That evening, as Jasmine stood on stage at the event in Chicago, she looked out over the room filled with women who had been impacted by the program. She could see the hope in their eyes, the determination to succeed, and the connection that had been reignited in the past few weeks. It was a turning point for all of them. As Jasmine shared her story and the journey that had brought the program to where it was today, she realized something she had been searching for. Success wasn't just about growth. It was about the lives they were changing. And now, more than ever, the program was on the right path to make that impact in ways she had always dreamed of. As the months passed, the changes Jasmine had initiated began to take root. The program's revival wasn't instant, but the positive impact was undeniable. The smaller workshops, more personalized mentorship, and stronger community bonds created an environment where the women in the program once again felt seen, heard, and valued. Jasmine had rediscovered the true power of the work they were doing, not just in the numbers or the sponsorships, but in the relationships they fostered. Jasmine found herself spending more time in the trenches, connecting directly with participants, attending the smaller, more intimate events, and even reaching out to individual mentors for feedback. It wasn't just about leading the way. It was about being a part of the community that had supported her from the beginning. She was no longer the figurehead on the outside looking in. She was right there alongside the women, working together toward a common goal. One morning, as she was going over the data from the recent workshops and events, Jasmine received an unexpected email. It was from a large media outlet, one she had admired for years. They wanted to feature her story and the program on a national platform. The email felt surreal. She had dreamed of moments like this, of the program reaching even more women across the country, but now that it was happening, Jasmine wasn't sure if she was ready. She had grown accustomed to the quiet, grassroots nature of the program, and the thought of being thrust into the spotlight once again made her feel uneasy. She sat back in her chair, staring at the email. She knew this could be a turning point for the program, an opportunity to take everything they had worked for to an even bigger stage. But she also understood that with this kind of exposure came a new set of challenges. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Dwayne. "I saw the email. Big news. How do you feel about it?" Jasmine hesitated before typing her response. "It's exciting, but also a little overwhelming. I never imagined the program would grow this much. It feels like everything's happening all at once." Dwayne's reply was swift. "That's because it is. But you've got this. You've been building this for years. You're ready for it. You just have to keep remembering what got you here in the first place. The impact, the community, the real work you've been doing. The rest will follow." Jasmine smiled at his words. He always seemed to know just what to say to ground her when she felt scattered. She typed back, "Thanks. I needed that." The decision was made. Jasmine agreed to the interview, and soon after, a team of reporters and producers were working with her to craft the story of her journey and the program's success. But even as the media spotlight loomed, Jasmine didn't let it shift her focus. She stayed grounded, ensuring that the integrity of the program remained intact. When the day of the interview came, Jasmine stood in front of the camera, her heart pounding. It wasn't the first time she had spoken publicly about the program, but the pressure was different now. The world was watching, and with that came both excitement and fear. The interview began with the usual questions about the program's origins, its mission, and how it had grown. But soon, the conversation turned personal. The interviewer asked about Jasmine's journey, the struggles she had faced, and the pivotal moments that had led her to this point. Jasmine found herself reflecting on everything she had been through, the sacrifices, the doubts, the failures, and the triumphs. She spoke candidly about the lessons she had learned, the relationships that had kept her grounded, and the reason why she had started the program in the first place, to make a difference. When the interviewer asked about the future, Jasmine paused for a moment. She could have easily spoken about expanding to more cities, increasing partnerships, or hitting financial goals. But instead, she said something that felt truer than anything else. "We're going to keep growing, yes," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But our mission will always be about people. It's about creating lasting change in the lives of the women we work with and empowering them to be the change they want to see in the world. It's about building relationships, not just programs." The interviewer smiled, clearly impressed by her sincerity. That's powerful. And I think that's exactly why this program has been so successful. After the interview aired, Jasmine received an outpouring of support from across the country. People were inspired by her story, the program's mission, and the vision she had for the future. It wasn't just about the publicity, it was about the impact the story had on others. Women reached out, eager to join the program, and many shared their own stories of struggle and resilience. For Jasmine, the exposure was a new beginning, but it also served as a reminder of how far she had come. She had started this journey with nothing but a passion to help others, and now, years later, the program was transforming lives on a much larger scale. But even with the newfound visibility, Jasmine knew that the road ahead was still long. There would be more challenges, more hurdles to overcome, but she wasn't afraid. She had a team of people who believed in the mission, and she had learned how to rely on them when things got tough. More importantly, she had learned to trust herself again. As the sun began to set that evening, Jasmine stood by the window in her office, looking out at the city below. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace. The journey was far from over, but the horizon ahead was brighter than she had ever imagined. The weeks following the media exposure were a whirlwind. Jasmine's phone buzzed constantly with messages of congratulations, partnership inquiries, and offers of support. At first, it was exhilarating. The recognition, the new connections, the doors that were opening. She was being invited to speak at conferences, meet with high-profile business leaders, and even appear on television shows. For a moment, everything seemed like a dream come true. But as the excitement settled, the reality of what was happening began to hit her. The pace was relentless, and with each new opportunity came a new set of challenges. Jasmine found herself stretched thin, juggling her role as the face of the program with the responsibilities of managing a rapidly growing organization. There were new expectations, new demands, and, with the added visibility, a growing pressure to perform. It wasn't long before the cracks began to show. Jasmine had always been the one to keep things running smoothly, but now there was so much to oversee. She was spending less time with the women in the program and more time in meetings, phone calls, and networking events. The more she was out there building partnerships and seeking funding, the more disconnected she felt from the very community she had worked so hard to create. The team felt it too. Emily and Claire, who had been her closest allies, started to express their concerns. They had seen Jasmine's shift from hands-on leader to corporate figurehead, and they feared the program was becoming something it wasn't meant to be. One evening, as Jasmine sat at her desk, reviewing a new partnership proposal, Emily walked in without knocking. Her expression was serious, her voice calm but filled with concern. "Jasmine, we need to talk," Emily said, closing the door behind her. Jasmine looked up from the proposal, her mind already overloaded with tasks. "What's going on?" "It's about the direction of the program," Emily began. "We've got a lot of exciting opportunities coming our way, but I can't help but feel like we're losing the essence of what made us different. I've noticed you've been stretched pretty thin, and we're not seeing you as much. I'm worried that if we keep going this way, we'll lose the very thing that made this program special in the first place." Jasmine's stomach tightened. She had been dreading this conversation, but deep down, she knew it was coming. She had felt it too, the distance growing between her and the heart of the program. It wasn't just the demands of success. It was the feeling of being pulled in so many directions that she couldn't focus on the things that mattered most. "I know, Emily," Jasmine replied, her voice quieter than usual. "I feel it too. I've been so focused on making sure we stay afloat, on making sure we're growing, that I've lost sight of the small moments that truly matter. The ones where we make the real impact." Emily nodded, her face softening. "We need you back, Jasmine. We need the woman who sat in those small workshops with the women, the one who remembered each of their stories, not the one who's in back-to-back meetings with sponsors. You can't do everything alone." Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. Emily was right. She had gotten caught up in the pursuit of success, chasing after partnerships, funding, and media attention, while the core of the program, the women, the community, had taken a back seat. In her effort to build something bigger, she had lost sight of the most important part of it all. "I don't know how to fix it," Jasmine admitted, her voice cracking slightly. I don't want to let go of these opportunities, but I don't want to lose what we've built. I don't know how to balance it all. You don't have to do it alone, Emily said gently. You've built an incredible team. You've built a community. You don't have to be everything to everyone. Let us help you carry the weight. Over the next few weeks, Jasmine made a conscious effort to scale back on the corporate side of the program and focus more on reconnecting with the women it was meant to serve. She took a step back from the media, turned down a few high-profile speaking engagements, and delegated more of the business side tasks to Emily and Claire. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when she felt the weight of missed opportunities. But every time she attended a small workshop or mentored a new participant, she was reminded of why she started this journey in the first place. The results were immediate. The energy in the program shifted. The mentors felt reinvigorated, the participants were more engaged, and the sense of community returned. Jasmine found herself once again immersed in the stories of the women she had helped lift up, and she realized that the success she had been chasing didn't come from the partnerships or the exposure. It came from the lives they were changing. But even as she worked to restore balance, Jasmine knew that there would always be a price to success. The reality of running a growing organization was that sacrifices had to be made. Some things would always be out of her control, and some decisions would inevitably be difficult. The trick was finding a way to live with those decisions, knowing that she was still true to her mission and her values. One evening, as Jasmine sat at her desk reflecting on the journey, she received another message from Dwayne. "How are you doing?" Jasmine smiled at the simplicity of his words. It had been a while since they had caught up. She typed back, "It's been tough, but I think I'm finally getting a handle on it. I've had to make some hard decisions, but I feel like I'm back on track. I've been reminded of why I started this in the first place." Dwayne's response was swift, as always. "That's what matters. You've always had a way of keeping your focus. Trust that you'll continue making an impact, no matter what. You're not just building a program, Jasmine. You're changing lives." Jasmine took a deep breath as she read his words. He was right. She hadn't lost her way. She just needed to remember where she had started and why. As Jasmine looked out the window that evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she realized that success wasn't just about what she had built. It was about what she could continue to give. And as long as she kept her heart in the work, no matter how much it grew, she would never lose sight of what truly mattered. As the program continued to grow, so did the pressure. Jasmine had made progress in recalibrating the focus of her work, focusing more on the women and the community. But the weight of managing both the day-to-day operations and the external expectations was taking its toll. Despite her efforts to scale back, there were moments when the demands of success still felt suffocating. One evening, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table with a mug of tea, trying to wrap her mind around the mounting list of emails, deadlines, and tasks ahead. She glanced at the clock. It was nearly midnight. Her mind raced with the question that had been looming over her for weeks. Was she truly doing what was best for the program? It was a question that had gnawed at her in private moments, when she found herself missing important meetings, letting calls go unanswered, or delegating tasks she once would have taken on herself. It wasn't that the program wasn't succeeding. In fact, it was thriving. The women were thriving. But Jasmine was beginning to feel like she was losing herself in the process. The weight of it all had been growing heavier, and she was beginning to wonder if the relentless push for growth was eroding the core values that had made the program so meaningful in the first place. Her phone buzzed. It was an email from Claire. She had been Jasmine's right-hand mentor for years, and the subject line immediately caught her attention. "We need to talk about the future." Jasmine sighed, rubbing her temples. She had been expecting this. She opened the email and read the short but direct message. "Jasmine, we need to have an honest conversation about where the program is headed. I'm concerned that we're spreading ourselves too thin and that the sense of community is starting to fade. Let's meet tomorrow to talk about how we can realign our goals." Jasmine stared at the screen for a long time. The truth was, she knew this moment was coming. She had been so consumed by the external growth and success of the program that she hadn't noticed how far the internal issues had gone, how disconnected she had become from the people who had supported her from the beginning. She set her phone down and took a deep breath. The truth was, she had been afraid of this conversation, afraid that Claire, Emily, and the rest of the team might feel betrayed by her recent choices, by her relentless focus on the corporate side of the program. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this was a reckoning she couldn't avoid. It was time to face the truth, no matter how hard it was. The next day, Jasmine met with Claire at the office. The space was quiet, and there was a heaviness in the air that matched the weight of the conversation that was about to unfold. "Jasmine, I know this isn't easy," Claire began, her voice calm but firm. "But I think it's time we took a step back and really looked at what's happening here. The growth has been incredible, and I know how much you've sacrificed to get us to this point. But I'm worried that we're losing something important in the process." Jasmine sat back in her chair, her hands clasped in front of her. She had been expecting Claire to say these things, but hearing them aloud still stung. "I've been feeling it too," she admitted. "I've been so focused on the next step, on making sure we're growing, that I've lost sight of what really matters. The community, the relationships, the women we're here to serve." Claire nodded, her expression softening. "Jasmine, you've done incredible things for the program, but we can't keep scaling like this without losing what made us who we are. The mentorship, the personal connections, those are the heart of everything we do. Without them, we're just another program. We need to find a way to grow that doesn't sacrifice the essence of what makes us different." Jasmine felt a pang in her chest. She had always known this deep down, but hearing it from Claire made it feel even more real. She had been so consumed by the pursuit of external success that she had forgotten the very thing that had driven her to start the program in the first place. The women, the lives they were changing. "I don't know how to fix it," Jasmine said, her voice thick with emotion. "I feel like I'm failing them. I don't want to go backwards, but I can't keep going forward like this either." Claire reached across the table and placed a hand on Jasmine's. "You're not failing, Jasmine, but you need to trust the team more. You've built something beautiful, but you can't do it all on your own. Let us help you carry the weight. Let us help you bring the program back to its roots." The next few days were a blur of meetings, conversations, and tough decisions. Jasmine, Claire, and Emily worked together to devise a new plan. One that would allow the program to continue to grow without sacrificing the very community that had made it so impactful. They decided to implement a growth with purpose strategy, focusing on expanding the program in ways that didn't overwhelm the staff or lose sight of the personal connections that were at the heart of their work. Jasmine had to make some tough calls. She scaled back on some of the corporate partnerships that had taken up too much of her time and attention, and instead focused on building stronger relationships with the women and mentors in the program. They also restructured the team to allow for more delegation and support, so Jasmine could focus on leading with clarity rather than being bogged down by the operational side of things. It wasn't easy. The changes were uncomfortable, and Jasmine knew that there would be sacrifices along the way. But the more she worked through the adjustments, the more she realized that this was the only way forward. She had to learn how to balance the demands of success with the needs of the community that had always been her priority. One evening, after a long day of meetings and restructuring, Jasmine sat alone in her office. She stared out the window, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. She thought about everything that had led her to this moment, the struggles, the triumphs, and the lessons learned along the way. She had faced the reckoning. She had confronted the truth about what she was risking in her pursuit of success. And now, she had a clearer vision for the future. A future where the program could grow without losing its soul. The road ahead would still be challenging, but for the first time in a long while, Jasmine felt at peace with the path she was on. She wasn't just leading a program anymore. She was leading a movement. And no matter how big it grew, she would never forget the heart of it all. After weeks of restructuring and recalibrating the program, Jasmine began to feel the weight of everything lift. The air in the office was lighter, the energy more focused. The team had rallied around the new vision, and there was a renewed sense of purpose. The changes weren't easy, but they were necessary, and the results were beginning to show. Jasmine spent less time behind her desk and more time in the field, meeting with the women in the program, attending workshops, and getting involved in the day-to-day work. She felt more connected to the mission than she had in months, and for the first time in a long while, she was able to breathe without the constant pressure of external expectations. But as the program regained its balance, another challenge presented itself. It happened one afternoon as Jasmine was sitting in a small cafe with Emily, catching up on some of the latest developments. The two of them were discussing the future of the program when Jasmine's phone buzzed. She glanced at it absent-mindedly, expecting another partnership proposal or a routine check-in. But what she saw made her heart skip a beat. It was an email from the board of directors. Jasmine, we need to discuss the future of your role. We've noticed a shift in focus recently, and while we appreciate your efforts to return to the roots of the program, we believe that the external partnerships and media exposure are crucial to its continued growth. We'd like to have a meeting next week to discuss your position further. Jasmine's hand shook slightly as she put the phone down. Emily noticed the shift in her demeanor. "What's going on?" she asked, concern in her voice. Jasmine explained the email, and Emily's expression darkened. "They're questioning you, aren't they?" Jasmine nodded, the weight of the situation sinking in. She had known the board was focused on growth and media attention, but this felt different. It wasn't just about the program anymore. It was about her leadership and the direction she had taken. She had worked so hard to shift the program back to its core, to focus on the women and their stories, but the board was still pushing for the growth they had originally envisioned. The kind of growth that Jasmine had come to question. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," Jasmine said softly, the uncertainty clear in her voice. "I don't want to compromise on what matters, but I can't keep fighting both sides. I don't know if I'm the right person to lead this anymore." Emily reached across the table and took Jasmine's hand. "Jasmine, you've built this. You've poured your heart into it. Don't let them take that away from you. But you have to stay true to yourself. If the board doesn't understand that, then maybe it's time to have a real conversation with them." Jasmine took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had worked so hard to create something meaningful, but now she found herself at a crossroads. The board represented the external pressure to grow, to expand, to become something bigger. But she knew that if she continued down that path, she risked losing the very essence of what the program was about. The meeting with the board came quickly. Jasmine walked into the conference room, her heart heavy with the knowledge that this conversation would shape the future of the program. The board members were seated around the table, their expressions serious. There was no warmth, no camaraderie, just business. "Jasmine, we've been reviewing the recent changes in the program," one of the board members, a man named Greg, began. "We appreciate your efforts to reconnect with the women, but we need to be clear. We believe the program's future lies in its scalability. We've had offers from major sponsors, and we're seeing real interest from the media. This is the time to grow." Jasmine nodded, trying to keep her composure. "I understand that," she said carefully, "but we can't grow at the cost of the community we've built. The reason this program has been so successful is because it's personal. It's about real, lasting change for the women, not just metrics and exposure." "We're not saying to abandon those values, Jasmine," another board member, Lisa, interjected, "but you're fighting an uphill battle here. The world isn't going to just wait for you to get it right. Growth is what's going to ensure the program's longevity." Jasmine's pulse quickened. She had heard this before, but it felt different now. This wasn't about compromising. It was about the soul of the program. The heart of what she had worked for was being questioned, and she knew she couldn't let it go. "I can't do it your way," she said, her voice firm, more resolute than she had felt in weeks. "I didn't start this program to chase money or sponsors. I started it to create real change in the lives of the women who need it the most. If that means we can't scale as quickly, then so be it. But I will not sacrifice the integrity of this program for the sake of growth." The room fell silent. Jasmine felt the weight of her words hang in the air. She wasn't sure where this conversation would lead, but she knew that for the first time in a long while, she was speaking from her heart, not out of fear or obligation. After what felt like an eternity, Greg spoke again, his tone softer. "Jasmine, we understand your perspective, but if you're unwilling to compromise on the growth, then we might need to reconsider your leadership." Jasmine's heart sank. She had known this was a possibility, but hearing it said aloud still felt like a punch to the gut. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "Then maybe it's time for me to step down." The meeting ended on a tense note, with no clear resolution. Jasmine left the building, her mind racing. She had made her case, but the board wasn't ready to accept it. They wanted results, and they wanted them now. That night, as she sat alone in her apartment, the weight of the conversation hung heavy. She felt the walls closing in, like the very program she had created, the community she had built, was slipping away from her grasp. But then, as she looked out the window at the city lights, something shifted. For the first time in a long while, Jasmine realized that the program wasn't just about her leadership. It was about the community, the women, the team, and the impact they had made together. She could step down. She could walk away. But the program would live on, stronger than ever, because it wasn't just hers. It belonged to all of them. The next day, Jasmine called an emergency meeting with her team. She sat down with Emily, Claire, and a few key mentors and shared the news. They listened quietly, their faces somber, but Jasmine could see the fire in their eyes. "We've come too far to let this go," Claire said, her voice steady. "If the board doesn't get it, then we'll have to show them. We'll keep going, with or without them. This program isn't just about you, Jasmine. It's about all of us. It's about the women we're empowering, the lives we're changing." Emily nodded in agreement. "We can rebuild this. We've already built something incredible, and now we'll take it to the next level. The program will thrive, no matter what." Jasmine felt a surge of hope. She had been on the verge of giving up, but now, surrounded by the team that had supported her all along, she realized something powerful. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. They had faced challenges before, and they would face many more. But as long as they stayed true to the mission, nothing could stop them. The days following the meeting with the board were filled with uncertainty, but also with a newfound clarity. Jasmine had made her decision. She would not bend to the pressures that threatened the integrity of the program. With her team by her side, she knew they could forge a new path forward, one that stayed true to the roots of what they had built together. As she sat in her office the morning after the meeting, the reality of the situation set in. The board hadn't yet responded to her ultimatum, but Jasmine had already started preparing for what might come next. She couldn't afford to wait idly for a decision. She needed to act. The program's future didn't hinge solely on the board's approval. It hinged on the community they had cultivated and the change they had already started to make in the lives of the women they served. That afternoon, Jasmine called another team meeting. This one was different, though. There was no longer a sense of uncertainty or fear. Instead, there was a shared sense of purpose, an understanding that they were about to chart a new course, one that would take them beyond the board's vision, beyond the confines of their current limitations. When the team assembled, Jasmine stood at the front of the room, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anticipation. "We've been through a lot," she began, her voice steady. "And it's clear that this program means something much bigger than just a business. It's about the lives we touch. It's about the women who look to us for guidance, support, and change. But we also know that we can't let anything, no matter how well-intentioned, undermine what we've worked so hard to build." Claire nodded in agreement, her eyes alight with determination. "We've come so far, Jasmine. There's no going back now. But we have to take control of our future. We can't let the board dictate what we stand for. We stand for the women. We stand for their empowerment, their success. That's the heart of what we do." Jasmine smiled, feeling the weight of her team's support more than ever. "Exactly," she said. "This isn't just about me or the board. It's about the women who've trusted us, the mentors who've given so much of themselves. We've built something real here, and we need to protect it, no matter what." The room was filled with a collective sense of purpose. For the first time in weeks, Jasmine felt a surge of confidence. She knew that, regardless of what happened with the board, the program would continue to thrive. It wasn't just a program anymore. It was a movement, and that movement was unstoppable. The next morning, Jasmine received a call from Greg, the board member who had been leading the charge for growth. He sounded more measured this time, less confrontational. "Jasmine," he began, "I've thought a lot about our conversation, and I wanted to let you know that we respect your position. We know how important the community aspect is to the program, and we've decided to move forward with your proposed strategy. We'll back you, but we need to make sure that the growth is sustainable, even if it takes longer than we originally planned." Jasmine's heart soared as she listened. She had been prepared for this to be a battle, but instead, the board had come to a compromise. They understood that growth couldn't be forced, They had to nurture it, allow it to evolve organically, just like the program itself. "Thank you, Greg," Jasmine said, her voice full of relief. "I promise you, we will find a way to grow without sacrificing what makes us unique. The women will always come first." After she hung up, Jasmine sat back in her chair, reflecting on the journey. She had fought to protect the essence of what they had built, and now, it seemed that the board was willing to work alongside her to ensure that vision remained intact. A few months passed, and the changes Jasmine had implemented began to show results. The program was growing steadily, but more importantly, it was growing in the right way. They brought in new partnerships that aligned with their mission, expanded the mentor network, and introduced new initiatives that further supported the women in the program. The community remained strong, and the personal connections that had always been the foundation of their work were still at the heart of everything they did. Jasmine found herself more energized than ever. She was no longer carrying the weight of the program on her own. She had the support of her team, her mentors, and the women who relied on them. She was a leader, but she was also a part of something much larger, a collective force for change. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings and events, Jasmine stood outside the office, looking up at the city skyline. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the buildings. It was a quiet moment of reflection, one that reminded her of how far they had come. Jasmine's phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from Emily. "We did it. Look at all the lives we've changed. And we're just getting started. Proud of you, always." Jasmine smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The road had been long, filled with obstacles and doubts. But through it all, she had found her way. She had found her voice. And now, the program was stronger than ever, ready for the next chapter. She replied, simply, "We did it together." And as she stood there, watching the last light of the day fade, Jasmine knew one thing for certain. The legacy they were building would live on long after she was gone. The program was no longer just a dream. It was a movement, and it would continue to thrive because of the heart and soul that everyone involved had poured into it. No matter what the future held, Jasmine knew that this was just the beginning.